it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to an episode of Her Success Story, where gutsy women share their stories, and I have a guest for you today that is near and dear to my heart. I need to almost jump right in here. Yeah, I'm going to tell you to leave your notes. I'm going to tell you to subscribe and all those things again at the end. I got connected to Michele Etzel a few months ago through a very old client, and she said, "Do you two ladies have to talk?" We just one evening, I think it was like 7 o'clock in the evening, we scheduled this time to talk with no agenda. I'll give you a little background on Michele. Michele is Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of a nationally recognized industry-leading print manufacturing company, holding companies and family office. She's the CEO and founder of National Enterprise Solutions, a recognized women-owned enterprise that works collaboratively to find business solutions. She is an expert in leadership. She's strategic planning, corporate accounting, financial management, business development, mergers, acquisitions. I can go on and on about Michele's bio. She's also an active board member in a variety of organizations that she just might touch on. But here's the heart of it. When Michele and I sat down to talk, we said, wow, we both are women in the printing industry. I spent 20 some odd years there. Wow, we've both done the working mom thing. Wow, we both worked with our fathers. For me, a period of time. For her, she's still in a family business. And there was just such alignment that I said, I invited her in that moment as, I'd love you to come on the podcast because there's so much we can share as working women, as women in an industry that's very male dominated, as women who are moms and have the number one priority as our children, no matter what, that we both kept tangenting and say, well, the interview can go here, there, and everywhere, but we're just going to do it. So welcome, Michele. Thank you for taking time out of, I know is a really busy time in your life, to chat with the listeners of Her Success Story and myself.
Thank you. What a wonderful introduction, and what a pleasure to be here.
So share a little bit. I mean, it's the one of the first things we talked about is how in the world did you get involved in the printing industry? How did I get involved? And I loved when you shared with me, it's like, well, I didn't really think I was going to do this. Well, and I think that's relevant for so many people. We end up in careers and industries that we didn't exactly plan on.
Well, one of the things when you ask me this question that comes to mind immediately is sometimes an old cliche, necessity is the mother of invention. So sometimes something is needed and you're put in a situation or you're pulled into a situation and it just happens and you take it from there. I had a situation where one door was potentially opening or closing and another door was opening, and my father invited me to join the company, and I told him it was going to be just for a short period of time. And when I giggle about it now, it's like that piece of gum on your finger and you shake it, you can't get it off, and I'm still here multiple years later. We are a totally different company. We have opened up another entity, National Enterprise Solutions, and the curiosity and the drive for education and always growing is kind of, I think, what kept me in this world, because that you have the flexibility to do so.
So what were some of your biggest challenges? Because there's something to, starting a new career that you didn't expect to start. And then there's also stepping into a family situation, which is an interesting development and kind of puts a unique spin on starting a new piece of a career.
Let's see, from a high level, the biggest challenge I would say would be trying to balance and cover all the pieces that we have as women. The high challenge would be to make sure that The mother role is taken care of very well. The wife role is taken care of very well. The job is covered as a manager and a leader, especially because as a leader, you're a model for those around you. So from a high level, the biggest challenge is balance. Now, once we talk about that and you kind of get used to it, I would say that the biggest challenges or mini challenges along the way would be when you have those baptism by fire situations that hit when you're already very tightly scheduled or you're already going into something crazy. And the only thing I can say is the ability to overcome it is just to plow right through it and continue to see the glass half full. And it could be when you take a look at any of those roles that we play, when there's an emergency in all three of those roles and you have to fix all three and it's your job.
Right. So
there's any way around it.
It's interesting you say that because it's so true. I mean, I remember like when I first came to work for my father in the very, very early year, and I had to learn that during the week I called him Irv, and on the weekends I called him Dad. Once, that was like a simple challenge, and I would like, in front of other people, I never called him Dad, but that training, like you trip over your tongue. And then, after I had a child and business evolved and I became a leader in the company, etc., and my child was sick, he was like, "You need to leave." And I'm like, I'm okay. And he's like, "No," so it was interesting dynamics in the different roles that, because we love each other, yet we're in running different facets of a business together. Were interesting challenges on such a simple basis.
Well, I think if you work in a family, and when you talk about a family business, most people think of something very tiny, but it's not necessarily that. I would say when you're talking in a family business or when you're working with family, there's just a different dynamic. It's the people that you love, but then it's also the people that you have a business relationship. So learning when to take the parent-child sibling hat on and off and put on the business hat, and hopefully hoping that the person on the other side of the table knows which hat you're wearing too. And then going home and having dinner with that person. Or one of the challenges we had was there was a hard and fast cutoff. At 6 o'clock, we do not talk business anymore. So if there's an emergency, we are not to talk business anymore within family. That's a hard thing to do when you run a 24/7 manufacturing firm. Sometimes you almost have to make an excuse to talk business, or I will go into a separate room because we do run a company. I do have a sibling there, and my husband works there. So if we need to have a discussion, we will actually leave the room and go into a different room physically, talk business, close the door, and walk out. Because I think
I like that system.
To define it is very important because it can overcome you, and then the balance between parent, leader, wife, all of those things can get very mixed up. And so the ability to kind of put these roles into boxes and understand which hat you're wearing at that time is probably one of the more interesting challenges, but at the same time, it's also one of the most fulfilling because there's so much opportunity there. There's so much. The world is your oyster. There really isn't a limiting factor.
And I love how you said, the position you went into for the company you went into all those years ago, although it was a family business, is a very different business today because we can get stuck. I truly believe there has been such evolution in business in and of itself in the last 10 years. And your company has kept on the leading forefront of being ahead of the curve as opposed to playing catch up.
We were always ahead of the curve. We did things that a lot of other print companies did not do. And we kind of took some jumps and challenges. And that's kind of an area that I spearhead. A new client might come along with a very interesting request, and it might not fit the proper niche. And if I can build a team and consensus and say, let's give this a shot and get people to realize that it will be successful because we're going to do our homework and make sure it's successful. And that innovator piece of me is one of those things that has helped me become, open up new revenue streams, build new businesses. And at the same time, it's built some credibility with those around me. So you have the integrity to continue to do that. But you wouldn't have that in other firms necessarily. So I would say that while you have a challenge of running something that doesn't go away, it's almost like another child. The exciting part of that is exactly that. The limits are those that you place on yourself.
And hats off to you and your organization, because 10 plus years ago, actually 15 or so years ago, a friend of mine who was new in the quote unquote internet world at the time, right, for a company that no longer exists, said to me, well, I sure hope you get another job soon because there will be no more printing.
Well, we have heard that so many times. And quite frankly, a lot of people have come and gone. I would say one thing that helps maintain success is just minding the P's and Q's, so to speak, the base things. People become successful, look for something greater, bigger, better, but then forget the base things that keep you healthy. So, you always have to, and I'm going to play to some of the strengths that you and I have spoken of before, because I believe we're both from a finance background, and making sure that you keep an eye on those numbers is very important. Trying something brand new is great, but if it's going to be a big loser, the answer is not this time, no thank you. And one of the hardest things to do for women is to say no, but you have to say no. And you don't have to say no rudely. You just have to say no, thank you, and move to that item, which is going to put you in a better situation. And, that makes life so much better, looking at the glass half full and seeing opportunities as opposed to struggling through difficulties.
It's so true. This concept of we want to say yes to everything. And I love that you're sharing it, because I like to say yes to everything. I want to be everywhere. I want to do everything. And you and I, before we even started recording, said, Ray, we've been meaning to have like this catch-up conversation. We want to meet. We want to get together. We want to do all this. And you so smartly, and hats off to you, said,
Thank you.
What, Ivy? I have my twins are graduating college. You have three daughters, if I may share. Your
Sure.
twins are graduating college. You have 3 children who are going to be moving to how many places in the next 3 months?
3 new apartments. And talk about necessity is the mother of invention. I had 3 girls in 2 years. So we didn't have time to think. We just had to make sure that we were going in the right direction, keeping everybody focused, positive, and running a business. So I think sometimes you just have to not overthink it, trust your instincts, move ahead. And then, if you make a mistake, kind of give yourself a break, step back, and, continue to think quick and organize. Don't just dive in the pool without checking to see if there's water. But don't overthink swimming, so to speak.
It's very true. It's very true. And when we all, as working women and working mothers, there's very often a lot of moving pieces. And you can't always anticipate, I knew when my kids are graduating. I knew when summer programs started. I knew when this happened and that happened. But there's always an enormous amount in life that we don't know. And how we just stay present to take those next actions as needed. So what are some of the things that have surprised you in this journey?
I'll tell you, when I was thinking about this, one of the things that surprised me is early on, I was asked to join a board of directors in the print industry, the Women in Direct Marketing International. And I'm not sure if they're still active like they were then. There was a place at that time where we were trying to mentor young women in our industry, but then we basically have evolved a little bit more into more industry-wide type mentoring. But I was very surprised when I give some thought as to my career and what happened. I was very surprised back then, now when you look back, that these women invited me to be on their board of directors. I was the only 20-year-old, and everyone was at least 20 to 30 years older than me. And they really took me under their wing. They gave advice. They supported me. I think there was an energy that I showed them, and, a persistence. And all they did was pretty much continue to support that. And if that is the one thing that I can say is a very positive experience and something that has resonated with me, and it's something I've always believed in doing. And then out of that, I would say that the recognitions and the awards that come out of it, I just am always surprised, because when you are in a private company, you're not necessarily looking for something of that nature. You're just doing your job because it's a private company and it's your company. So you're not looking for something to be recognized for doing your job when it's yours. So when that does happen and it comes from outside, it's very pleasant surprise and a very nice one, and it's very pure.
Love that. Love that. So let's talk about something here, because we both have busy schedules, busy women, and we jumped on the phone because our mutual friend Mary said the two of you need to talk.
Well, she was right, wasn't she?
Boy, was she right.
If we were neighbors, we'd be talking all the time.
We'd be living together. So why, I'll share from my point of view, but I think, there's something here that what we both did and the outcome of it is important to share. So Mary said, hey, Michelle, you ought to talk to Ivy. And Mary said, Ivy, you ought to talk to Michelle. And between everything going on in your life, everything going on in my life, we were just around launching my book, new website, this, that, and the other thing. I have a couple of kids. You have kids that are doing the phenomenal things and are going in many different directions, opening business, counseling, opening and servicing businesses left, right, and sideways, as well as an enormous amount of board work. Why did you take the time to just get on the phone before we both had sat down with our spouses for dinner that night?
Quite frankly, you and I think, are a rarity. There are very few. First of all, I think in the manufacturing world, there aren't as many women that are talking to other women in manufacturing. That's the first thing. And in print, very, very few that are communicating with each other more openly than probably maybe today we're doing so a little bit more openly, but there just aren't as many. And to have somebody who has such a similar experience, when Mary explained some of your background, I said, oh, I have to talk with her, because you just don't find someone out there with those similarities that would be open to communicating and networking. Usually we're just different. The two of us, I think, are not as, there's just not as many of us as there are maybe in other communities or other industries.
And I think things are starting to change, which truly excites me.
Absolutely.
And women are having more conversations with other women and forming true networks. There's an enormous amount of organizations behind that today. But, I can't encourage more. Just the opportunity, Michelle and I jumped on a call, and we have no idea if we're ever going to do business together. And somehow I'm sure we will. I have no idea what it will look like. I have no idea if it will be referrals, if it will look like anything, if we'll develop something together, if we will just go out and dance together and have cocktails. And it might be a D, all of the above, over the years that we will build and nourish a relationship between the two of us. But I think one of the most important components is this: say yes and jump on the phone. Say yes and have that conversation. Say yes to meeting people and having conversations with people that we don't always know the outcome of the agenda to.
I agree. And many times that yes could be a very small thing, but over the course of years, it develops into such a relationship that you now have a new client, a new piece of business, someone that opens the door for someone else. And I think that being open to meeting people, but also being persistent in maintaining relationships is really important. We can get sucked away from people, but if you don't forget, even if it's a quick email or a quick text or something, just to say, hello, I'm thinking of you. Believe it or not, that simple hello, I'm thinking of you, sometimes resonates with people. Sometimes others, they don't like it, but they might not be the right person. But with those that it resonates long term, they're going to be someone that when you really need a bit of help, you can call upon them. And those are the types of people that you want to have when you're doing something new, or if you come up against a roadblock and you think back, oh yeah, I talked to so-and-so many moons ago and I believe that they had a specialty in this area. I could call them for some advice. And the input that you get from them is non-judgmental and it's objective because there isn't an end result for them. So it enables you to actually do your job better.
Touche, touche. So I'm all about relationships, and you know this because we've chatted about it, and we both are, which is what we're talking about, is just developing relationships without knowing what the agenda is going to be going in. What, based on what as we're chatting about this, are there any significant relationships in your world that have been impactful for you in building your careers, your family, things that interacted along different various topics?
Interestingly enough, when I sit down and I think about this, and I really think about a relationship that's impactful and long-term, the one that comes to mind is kind of a cliche or corny, but it truly is what it is. It's my husband. Because when you're working and you have siblings and you're in a family office or a family business, there's healthy competition, which is normal. And when you have parents, it's a healthy relationship to look for acceptance or to try to please or all of those things that people talk about. But when I met my husband, who was very much outside of the situation, and you have someone who's encouraging, who's engaged in helping you, and he gives me a very different view. He gives me the viewpoint from a male perspective, which helps me to refine and better communicate. Because in our world, in a manufacturing world, while there are more females getting into that world, there weren't as many years ago. So when I speak of something, I might be saying apple, but somebody might be receiving orange. So to actually hear it from someone who has a very different view on it and look at it is helpful so that you can better communicate, and it makes your world a little bit easier when you're trying to build consensus and close something.
So, Michele,
yes,
what tips and advice do you have for other women who are coming up in the business world, working moms? There's still an enormous amount in manufacturing that is male dominated, as well as actually in many other industries. So I don't know if there's going to be one or five, but curious, what do you have to say, kiddo?
Okay, so mine is going to be something that I want to read to you.
Okay.
And it's an old quote from Calvin Coolidge, and I used this when I applied for college many moons ago, and it's persistence. And if I were to pick just one item that I would share with people, I would say don't give up. Keep plugging away. Persistence. And I'm going to read the quote. The quote says, "Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence.
Sorry.
That's fine. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. Now, I say this quote, and this is at least 30 plus, maybe 40, very old. But the idea of persistence and never giving up and seeing the opportunities as opposed to the problems, I think is one of the things that has kept me going through some of the toughest situations. And I also think it's one of the things that will help all women kind of, see the light at the end of the tunnel. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And we forget that sometimes.
I think that's so true. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is, I have a strong belief that opportunity is everywhere. Are we willing to show up with an open heart and an open mind to connect to the opportunity that's at our fingertips? And that takes persistence, the follow-up, the connecting, the staying in a conversation. I agree. I don't see myself as the sharpest tool in any shed, but I'm damn persistent.
But there, in the reality of the world, and this is something that I have made very important part of our lives as far as educating my daughters as well. There's always someone quicker, taller, faster, better, richer, poorer, slower, not as good. There's always someone more intelligent. There's always someone who has natural talent that you don't have. But what's going to help you kind of, have an edge? Sometimes it's just showing up every day, all the time, and being there. And especially if you're in the manufacturing world, and I think all of us who have been in that world totally understand that, it's just the persistence of all of that. And I believe that is true in the world. Now, it means that you do get to take time off, and there is balance, but never giving up, I think it's very important. Just never give up.
So back in the day, there were some challenges of building a reputation for female in the printing industry.
Yes.
I will say from my point of view, the women were the receptionists, the bookkeepers, and I'll say a production assistant, never to be the production person.
Well, I would say not only that, but add to that, it could be in the manufacturing world, but in the print world, add to that, you have a finance degree, and 9 times out of 10, the room is a dark suit full of gentlemen, and you're that lone female in a suit that might not be black or navy. It might be red or green, or it might be something different. You certainly stand out. So I agree. It certainly is. Times have changed, and thank God for it.
And hats off to you, Michele, because you took the ability and the opportunity of standing out to build a brand yourself and making an impact, not just on the industry, but on the ripple effect, touching your daughters and touching the Girl Scouts and several other boards you're part of.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that I think is incredibly rewarding. And to see when it impacts someone, to see the light bulb when it goes on in their eyes, whether it be a male, female, or anyone you're mentoring, I would imagine you doing what you're doing, Ivy, that's always a gift.
It is. That's when I see somebody's face light up, I see their eyes light up. And I feel that connection of, oh, I can do this. And oh, here's opportunity. And oh yeah, I got this. Is the greatest gift of showing up in what drives me out of bed every morning.
Well, seeing others succeed is a testament to your ability to help them too. So it's always, it's nice. It's just a good feeling. And it's what continues to drive us, because you're a role model as a leader. So when you see others succeed, or you see someone taking on a certain task that you used to do or a certain trait, at first people are sometimes, I'm not going to do that, or no, and then next minute you know they're doing the same thing, and secretly it's a compliment. No one wants to say it or give it, but it's a compliment.
Well, Michele Etzel, I appreciate your time today. Listeners, the key word for Michele is persistence. When you are persistent, you can have everything you've ever wanted in life. That includes business, personal, and live your life to your heart's content and your fullest. Connect to Michele. Michele, how can people stay connected to you?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Our listeners can stay connected to you through
LinkedIn, through our websites, and through email. Absolutely.
So all the links will be in the show notes. Feel free to leave a review, a comment, what you want to hear more of, and of course, subscribe. Her success story comes into your inbox every Monday morning. Michele, thank you for a fabulous catch-up as well as an interview. Listeners, thanks for taking the time to join us. Till next time.
Thank you, Ivy. It's been a pleasure.